over on B'nai Noah connection with Israel.
Okay. Give me just a minute. Sorry, everybody. This is live, and it's
Not
trying to
memory.
send the data. I'm there now. It's trying to send the data, and I think I may have it fixed. Let me just see. And no, I do not have it fixed. I'll go back and check that out here just in a few minutes and see what's going on. My dashboard tells me it's streaming, but that doesn't mean anything. Okay, so
Let me just double check again with mine real quick because sometimes it might be. Let me do a refresh,
I
and
apologize,
It
everybody.
is.
it's there. It's live streaming now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had to just reboot my dashboard and try to get it back out. You know, listen, there is a lot to run in the engine room.
You're right.
I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot to run in the engine room. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started on our Sadaka time.
Hey, Scotty, real quick before you get, I see over here on the announcement I made. There's an Ephraim. You might want to keep a watch and see if he gets connected. He's going to try to connect up and see if he gets connected there in the room. His name's Ephraim. He's left a note on the post I made that he's going to try to get connected.
Okay.
So I just want to make you aware of that one there.
Okay, I'll let you, or I got Thomas and also Amuela watching, so
That'll work.
We'll let them kind of take care of that. So, all right. I want to say thank you to everyone who has sent Sadaka this week. We've got some people that sent Sadaka. We have a person who sent Sadaka online. I mean, from the Power Faith Radio, and I'm not going to tell you the amount they sent. It's not the amount that counts, but we want Hashem to bless them, and so we are giving Sadaka in blessed memory tonight for Daryl Moore. And we're using this Sadaka box tonight, Daryl Moore. Also, we're giving Sadaka tonight, and I think I copied this name correctly. It's Al Glick or Click. So you'll just have to, Jeremy, you can send me information on that if you would again if you watch this. I know you're at work right now, but if you could just let me know that I got it right, and we're going to be giving blessed memories Sadaka for him tonight. Also, Carl Schaus, we've been giving Sadaka for a touch for him as Tim Schaus. His name's Carl Schaus. That is Thomas's father, and we're giving blessed memory for him. He's left this walk of life. So, all right. Also tonight, Anthony Ben Lewis, we're giving, he needs a touch. We're giving Sadaka for a touch tonight. Also, we always give Sadaka for Sally Justice. We're giving Sadaka for her tonight. Sally's coming a long way. Also, Gerald Cofield. We're giving Sadaka for him tonight. We're looking forward to hearing more from Karen about him. Sometimes she comes in the YouTube or the Facebook and gives us updates when she can't get into the Zoom room. Also, we're giving Sadaka tonight for always, someone always sends Sadaka for you, Amuela. It always, somebody always sends something in for you, a blessing for you. Also, they always send blessing in for you as well, Thomas. So we thank them for doing that. Also, Veronica Port, she's going to be having eye surgery pretty soon, and we're giving Sadaka for her eye surgery. We're giving Sadaka for two reasons: for the cataracts taken off her eyes, and that she will not panic when she sees us as we really are. And also, Christina Thompson, I saw today where she had a fall. And so we're giving Sadaka for her tonight. Now we're going to do birthdays real quick. We don't have a lot of birthday people that sent birthday Sadaka in, but we're going to do them. And if I can get these right, Annie Nobers, we're giving Sadaka for her tonight. Also, Thomas Brooks had a birthday this week. And also, Stacy Kirk had a birthday this week. I want to tell you something that happened through Power Faith Radio. The people are probably listening tonight, and I hope that I believe they are. And they were listening last week, and they also was able to listen on Sunday night with Pesach Sherbo. And so they were really amazed at the depth of learning and understanding that they received in just those 2 hours that surpassed everything they had gotten all of their lives. The way they were talking about it, it was just exciting. And I'm looking here. I'm going to read this off so I can read this off. Give me just a minute. I apologize. Give me just a minute. I had to re-find it here. Thank you so much for the information provided through these 2 classes, Wednesday night, Sunday night. We will be listening every Wednesday, we know. We are no longer going Wednesday night to the place we usually traveled to receive biblical information. In fact, we are planning to have a meeting at our house on Wednesday night and bringing your class into our living room to teach the people Torah. Terry, I just got to say, every time I look at that email, I get cold chills. So I just so appreciate that, and I'm going to look. They may be listening now through the YouTube. I told them if they couldn't get in the Zoom room, the YouTube would be the best, but I'm going to try to get with them to show them how to bring the Zoom room up on their TV. So
good. Well, I appreciate their kind words.
Yes. All right. Well, again, I want to say that we're doing this class tonight. We're dedicating this class to all of the names mentioned during our Tzedakah time. All right, Terry, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I do want to say last week was when I studied for it, and some of the things that I couldn't go to sleep after class, and this last week was just been on my mind a whole lot. It was just and I'll be honest with you, when I first was studying for last week's class, I didn't even think about Naaman. But the more I studied, and it just I need to look at this. And then when I saw the connection, that it was almost exact. I mean, there was so much correlation between Naaman and his experience in the sailors. It really, I don't know, it kind of excited myself there a little bit. Scotty, do we have any questions or anything from the last few weeks, or anything we can jump into before we begin tonight's lesson? Anything we need to questions or discussion or anything?
Well,
because tonight will probably be a little bit short, but next week, when we get into verse 2, there's some things in there that I'm going to get into this week and study out, because like on prayer, the Hebrew word for prayer is used in there. And a lot of people think, well, just prayer. Well, when you look at it in the Hebrew, it really has a lot of depthness to it that most people don't really understand what the Hebrew word for prayer means, and it can help you in your prayer life. And so I want to get into that next week. That's why I didn't want to get into it this week, because I just think next week's going to be another special time with some of the words that are there.
One of the biggest questions that has come in, and we've covered it several times, and I kindly put on the radio that where they could go to get this information. But the information that they desired was where you are getting your information. And so I've set them on that path, so hopefully they'll journey to that. But that's basically a surround position of the information questions asked. So you can probably go ahead and
okay, well, just to kind of touch a little bit on that, as I said before, we're going through the book of Jonah, and I'm doing it via the ArtScroll Tanakh series, Jonah. I can show you, for those who have the video or watch the video, they can see it. It's the ArtScroll book of Jonah. It has a lot of the teachings from the sages in it, and it's just really good information look behind me. I've got books from Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, who's one of my favorites to study, who lived in the 1800s. Masorah Harav, another great Torah teacher. I've got the Ramban, who lived, probably 1,000 years ago or better. I've got the white books behind me, are Art Scroll Tanakh series. I've got Genesis and Psalms there, both with teachings that goes over 2,000 years. It's been collected. That's in there. So I just, when I'm studying something, sometimes the sages will have, and the Torah scholars will give a little, tie back to another passage. Well, then I hit all my books. I'm going to those passages through others, and as I'm studying, it's a little, just some digging. And I love to dig. I love to put my, dirty clothes on, get in with a shovel and do some digging. I actually enjoy it. I get to do that. So I do that sometimes in the morning times before I go to work. And I looked at my wife. I said, "Do I got to work today?" I said, "I'm really having fun in here." So, but anyhow, my materials, I just have vast materials. Scotty, I need to get somehow we can get some people on my blog site, emunatrek.com. I have a page. If you want to put that in Power Faith and on the others, emunatrek.com is my blog site. I have a reference and a link page that has all the books listed I study, I recommend, has website links and things in there that I recommend, that I go to myself and things like that.
Terry, there were a couple of people in several different venues that asked if we could do another. I think we've done one in the past, just a basic, but if we could do some type of program talking about all these books, who the authors are, and all those things, because, I'm going to say this very delicate. In the Western world, the books that are available to find information are not commentaries based on the original text. Did I say that good enough?
Right. The people that we go to, that we have learned from, are those from the original language, the Hebrew, those that are from the Torah. Their traditions and their understandings and their customs goes back 3,400 years, and they know the Hebrew. I mean, I met a rabbi in Brooklyn here back in about 2010. Never met a man like him in my life. I couldn't even shake his hand. I mean, all he does, he's an older gentleman. He's a Hungarian Jew, and he sits and he studies 24/7 practically. In his knowledge. They know this stuff without even having to go to a page. They can quote. If anybody's watched Rabbi Toby Singer, he quotes things just like in the Hebrew, in the Aramaic. It just like he knows it. These are the guys that we learn from, because this is their life. They were born. A lot of them are born in it, and they spend a lot of time. So, yeah, we could do a class just on resources sometime. I can take my list that I've got that I personally use, and everything that's on my list I have. It's right here in my own library. And so, all right, Scott, anything else? We'll get into chapter 2, verse 1. Are we ready? Oh, I got
we are ready.
All righty then.
Remember, I gotta push more buttons than everybody else when I get back over here. Right. So we're ready.
I want to welcome Egbert. Welcome to the class. I see you, that you're here. So we just want to say hi. Thank you for joining us tonight, and all those others that's on Power Faith Radio and Torah for the Nations YouTube channel, and B'nai Noah Connection with Israel Facebook group as well. All right. Chapter 2, verse 1 of Jonah 2, says, Then Hashem, then the Creator, designated a large fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah remained in the fish's belly for 3 days and 3 nights. Pretty simple, isn't it? Now let's dig into what the sages know and taught, and from also understanding some of the Hebrew here that actually explains more. One of those that's heard me teach, I learned a long time ago, English is about one of the worst languages you can translate from the Hebrew into, and probably any other language. I mean, it's like my guy I work with, he's from Puerto Rico, born and raised, and his native language is Spanish. So we'll be talking and go, oh, he said, no, that's not a good word. And he tries to explain things to me, and he goes, I can only say it in Spanish. Well, I've got Jewish friends. When I text them or message them, I said, okay, I'm studying. I know what this word is, but I know that there's more to it. And they'll message me back. You need to understand the thought of Hebrew mindset, being raised in it, to understand it where I'm at. Right now, we can only give you an English definition of what's available in the words. So Hebrew is like many other languages, has a lot of depthness to it. That English is just, I'll be honest with you, English is shallow. When you start learning other languages, English is a shallow language. And I was born and raised English, so. And I'm just going to just put it this way. I think the American English, because I love British shows and British, detective shows and stuff. And I can tell the difference in the writing. When you're listening to it, you can tell just the type of writing. If I was going to study literature, I'd want to study it from the English, the British, way of understanding the writing, because it even goes so much deeper than our American stuff has gotten really lazy in its language. So that's enough said. The Creator designated a large fish to swallow Jonah. The Torah sage Roddick explains that the word is the best understood where it says designated. It's very similar to a Hebrew word, minah, which means to provide, which is used. That word is used in Daniel. The word here is let me make sure I'm looking at the right word, because I've got several different ones. Hold on, I got to flip the page here. Yeah, the Hebrew word here designated is vayeman. So we can see here that mina has kind of a root word to it. It's translated as designate, or literally, a literal translation is appointed. And it's related to provide. So he appointed a large fish. He provided it, but he appointed it. It says that God had readied the fish for the moment that Jonah was cast into the sea. It was a miracle that the fish swallowed him just then. As soon as he hit the water, the fish swallowed him. And he did not drown. That meant he didn't have time. He didn't hit time in the water to inhale water and choke and drown. It was the moment he went in the water, this happened. And this was all part of the miracle. Now we're going to be getting into a piece here that's going to be difficult for some to understand, because you have to study the Hebrew tradition, the Hebrew history to understand where this is coming from, because even the ancient scholars they get this information from the ancient Hebrew scholars. Rav Tarfon notes that the fish had been specifically designated and prepared for this task. The Torah scholar Radal says, from the 6 days of creation to swallow up Jonah. Accordingly, the phrase is rendered that the Creator had already designated him. In the Hebrew tense, in its grammar, the way it's written in the tense of the sentence, T-E-N-S-E, in the tense of the sentence. Here's one of these words. I had to look it up because I still learn a lot of the English words here that I don't use every day. Pluperfect. the sages teaches us that this statement that the Creator designated is pluperfect tense. So for those like me that, not English scholars and sees this, uses this stuff every day, the definition of pluperfect is this: of or being a verb tense used to express an action completed before a specified or implied time. Meaning that when it says he had designated, it meant this fish was designated before this event ever occurred. The sages go back and they teach that this was prepared for at creation. And what that means, and I won't read this whole thing, I'm just going to give you the summary of it, that in Pirkei Avot, that means the ethics of the fathers. It's a writing. Matter of fact, hold on here. I was going to do this. I didn't lay this book out. I looked at it and forgot to lay it out. Sorry about that, guys. In Ethics of the Fathers, it begins like this in Pirkei Avot. And this is something that they study, they read. Some do it daily as part of their studies. It starts out in chapter 1. And I just want to give you an idea of this. This is how the Hebrews, they keep up. And also when you read their stuff, they don't hide their mistakes. They don't hide the bad kings away from the good king. They tell everything that happens, good and bad. They don't mess around and try to make things look good, to make them look good. No, they record it as it is. And this is the way this is how this starts. In Pirkei Avot, or Avos, or fathers, Ethics of the Fathers, in chapter 1, verse 1 says, Moses received the Torah at Sinai, handed it down to Joshua. Joshua to the elders to the prophets handed it down to the men of the great assembly. This was an assembly at the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. And they said 3 things: be deliberate in judgment, raise up students, and make a fence around the Torah. Simeon the Just was one of the last survivors of the men of the great assembly, and he used to say, upon 3 things the world is based: upon the Torah, upon divine service, and upon the practice of charity. That's the first 2 verses of Pirkei Avot in chapter 1. When the time you get to chapter 5, and it's going through all this chain, the chain from the time of Moses and the teachings and things. When you get to chapter 5, it talks about that there are some things that the Creator made before sundown of the 6th day. And they mentioned the rainbow, Moses' staff, and the several different things that we see within the history that the Creator created these things. These are tools that he would be using later down the road. And this fish is listed, the sages says this fish for Jonah was supplied at that time. And I know, like I said, this is sometimes might be a hard teaching for some, but this is part of the tradition that's been handed down since the time of Moses. And it says, thus the existence of the fish must be considered a central precondition to the functioning of creation. And Tosafos Yom Tov notes that Avos 5, that it's inevitable that the miracles of the fish which plucked Jonah from the sea is in no contradiction. So I want to bring this up. No contradiction to the doctrine of free will. There's no contradiction in that. For by the Creator yet gave permission, or permission is given to man to do as he wishes. God's foreknowledge of man's eventual free will choices. I think we had a discussion on free will here in one of our classes, a few classes back. But the Creator's foreknowledge of man's eventual free will choice, in this case Jonah's free will decision to flee God's command and his ultimate casting overboard, does not foreclose man's freedom to choose, despite the ability of human intelligence to grasp how could this be so. For God's prior knowledge of what will be chosen. God's intelligence is so different, and it's from a different order from our own, as such that it's unfathomable. Matter of fact, in a deep Hasidic teaching or word or a name that the Torah masters of the ancients, who are very deep into the Torah, their name for the Creator was called Ein Sof. That's one of his names. And that means in English, incomprehensible. That God cannot be comprehensive. Matter of fact, we know the passage that his thoughts are not our thoughts and our thoughts are not his thoughts. Even though by his foreknowledge, he knew what man was going to do, he provided certain things, but yet he didn't stop the free will. Because once the Creator stops a man's free will from making a choice, see, the free will is in the choice. After you make the choice, the result of your choice, that's up to the Creator. You have no control over just like the great example, I like how Rabbi Friedman says it. You choose to shoot an arrow. Let's say you choose to shoot an arrow at a person, you want to kill them. By your choice to shoot the arrow, you're actually a murderer right there, regardless of the outcome. Once that arrow leaves that bow, you have no control where it goes, what it does. Maybe it misses, maybe it mains, but your choice was to murder, therefore you're a murderer from the choice, not the result. Well, it didn't kill the person. That doesn't know. You are a murderer from the choice. We have free will over the choice. Once we make the choice, the result is up to the Creator. But your guilt or innocence is based on the choice you make. And you follow through with that. Once you follow through with that choice, regardless of the result, that is what you're judged on by that choice that you've made. Whether you actually killed someone or didn't kill someone, or actually you stole something or you didn't steal. Maybe you went into a filling station and your goal was to rob the cashier, but somebody thwarted that. You're still a thief. You're still actually a robber, because robbery is violent theft. You may not have completed the task you went after, but your choice was to be a robber. Your choice was to be a murderer. And once you set that in motion, that is where you're at. So God does not thwart that from us. If he thwarted that from us, we would have no free will. We'd be no different than the angels or the animals or a blade of grass that has no free choice. Anything before I go to the next part of this verse, Scotty? I know I just unloaded a big bag of beans right there.
Well, yes, you did. So, okay. So, interesting discussion over, I remember the last time we discussed free will, and the discussion's coming back up again.
We probably need to just have a complete class just on free will sometime.
I'm going to ask you
from the Hebrew perspective.
On the Hebrew perspective, I don't want to take you off of where you're going with the teaching tonight, but because you're on free will, I would like to ask you, are we the only creation of God that has free will?
Yes.
So
the free will that we are given when it says that we are created in his image is that we have free will.
So animals do not have free will.
Animal has no free will. They have a soul. Everything has a soul. But the part of the creation, how when it says that God created us in his image, is that we have the free will to make a choice, a decision. See, some people will say things, about certain things about the Creator. He chooses not to do certain things. Can he do it? Oh yeah, he can do it. He can do whatever he wants. But his free will choice is not to do certain things. And that is part of how we are created in his image, is that we are given free will.
Okay.
Like I said, the animals, just like in matter of fact, when you study some of Rabbi Hirsch's stuff on Genesis 1, when he's talking about the creation, and when God says bring the vegetation, the seed bearing, and all that, plants and stuff after each kind, or bring the cattle of the field, the beasts of the field after each kind. They have no choice in who they are. If you watch a let's say a show that's showing like a safari, and you see you see a leopard attacking a zebra, that's how they were created. That's not murder. That's not wrong. That's within their an instinct. The instinct, what we call instinct in an animal, is their divine programming.
Like their genetic code.
It's their genetic code. Our genetic code is we have a choice on what we do. Animals don't. Grass doesn't. An oak tree has no choice but to grow up and produce acorns and the leaves that it makes. It can't choose to grow a pine cone. If it could choose to grow a pine cone, then it would have free choice. It doesn't have. It grows as it's designed, as its internal programming is programmed. The laws that it works under. Us, we have the free choice, and we're sitting here, and God put us in all these, in this creation to study it, to look at it, to make a decision of what we are going to do.
Okay, I want to put one more thing on here. Again, I do not want to take you away from your class.
I know, but this is part of this teaching right here.
Okay.
So it's good.
As animals move in their genetic programming, they do not have to face the consequences of their actions. But
No.
us having free will, we have to face the consequences of our actions. Not the outcome of the action, but the actions itself.
Action itself. Yes, we are given the ability to know between right and wrong, and based on the choice we choose, the result is reward or punishment.
Okay.
The animals don't have reward and punishment. Although there are times like when, you've got a dog and you teach the dog to go outside. I mean, you can teach them to do certain things. It's not that they have free will. You've trained them
Conditioning.
to go out. You condition them to go outside and potty. And you do that a lot of times by reward, and they get used to that reward. It's not their free will. We were given the command to have dominion over the animals in Genesis. We are to have dominion. We are to be their masters. And what does masters do? They raise up their subjects to do the things they need it to do. And that doesn't have anything to do with free will when it comes to the animals. It's just part of our job is to have dominion over the creation, and we bring it into our service.
A good example of that is when I was a little boy, my grandfather had a horse that he used to plow with. And when it come time to plow, that horse would actually back up into the harnesses in order to plow. It's conditioned. So one more question.
All right.
What about angels?
Angels have no free will. An angel is no different than a half-inch wrench. If we make a half-inch wrench to take off a half-inch bolt or to put on a half-inch bolt, you can't put on a 5/8 bolt with a half-inch wrench. It's not what it was made for. An angel was created to be a messenger and a servant of the Creator to do a specific job that he is given at the time. That doesn't mean they do the same job all the time, but they can't change that job. If I pick up that half-inch wrench, I'm going to pull a half-inch bolt off, or I'm going to put a half-inch bolt in. That's what it's designed for. It can't decide, well, today I want to be a Phillips screwdriver. Nope, that doesn't happen. I designed it. I made it what I needed it to do, and that's the angels. God designed the angels to do what he needs them to do. There's no free will in it. They can't choose not to do it. They have to do their job. That's the way they're made.
Great answer. Okay, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it right there.
I know I have opened up a big can tonight, haven't I?
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. I have a positional stance on that, but I'm not going to bring it in tonight. I'm going to wait till I agree with you 110%. And but there are positions in No, I'm not gonna go. Thank you, Terry, so much. Great answers. Great answers.
Right. Fred, I do see your question, but that's a topic that I'm not going to discuss tonight. That's a very deep, deep topic that you brought into, and it would take some. Yeah, that is it's a tough. And yeah, I know what you're talking about. So I don't want to bring that up tonight because there's just it's just yeah, that's not a subject for us. If someone wants to personally study, some things like that, that's up to the person and everything. But okay, that was the first thing where he designated the fish. He designated this fish was brought about at the end of before twilight of the seventh day at creation to be used, just like he kept this fish in his toolbox, like he kept the rainbow and everything else that the sages says that there were 10 or so things that were created at the end of this, toward the end of the sixth day, that was to be used throughout history. And because he created them at that time doesn't do away with our free will. It has to do with his omnipotent foreknowledge that we cannot fathom. Now this is going to be really good. He says a large fish. The Hebrew is dug gadol. Dug gadol. Fish large fish. This, we always hear about Jonah and the whale. The species of this large fish is not mentioned. The popular notion that it is a whale is baseless, since the text defines it as a large fish. The text says it's a large fish. That's all it says. It could have been a overgrown bluegill as far as we know. It could have actually even been a bluegill. It's going to be interesting. We're fixing to look into some neat stuff. Because sometimes large doesn't designate size. Gadol can be high, large, important. It's just, I mean, how many of us refer to someone like, a CEO, he's the big guy. That doesn't mean he can't fit through a door. It's his responsibility makes him a big guy or a big woman. And it has nothing to do with physical size. It has been observed that both the sperm whale and a certain large species of sharks would have been capable of is capable of swallowing a man whole. But the identity of the species of the fish is unimportant. And the attempt to identify it distracts us from the essential narrative of the thread. It takes away when people get thinking about, it's a whale and this, that. That's not the message. See, because it's Jonah and the whale, I can tell you right now, the majority of the people in the Western world, myself was included, and Scotty and I, I've talked about this for a long time because of the things that I've learned in this study years ago. It detracts away from the fact that the book of Jonah is about repentance. It's like I said from the get-go. Everything in here has an aspect tying it to repentance. The Jewish people on the Day of Atonement, the holiest day of the Jewish year, when the nation is commanded to appear before the Creator as a nation, and they shall repent, and we're going to learn some other stuff in that lines, that they study this book on that day. They read the whole book. Toward the end of the day, they read this whole book from Indian. The Jewish people studied this book on the subject of repentance. And we're talking about a Jewish prophet going to a non-Jewish nation. Ended up dealing with some non-Jewish sailors on the way. A non-Jewish sailors, non-Jewish city, and both were idolaters. And a Jewish prophet was used in this. So it brings us all into the pictures, the Jews and the non-Jews, every nation, the Jews and the nations. It brings every human being into context on the subject of repentance. And we discussed a little bit of that over the last couple of weeks toward the end of chapter 1. If you want to go catch parts 8 and 9, probably 7, 8, and 9, we've discussed quite a bit of that. We're dealing with the sailors. It says, it suffices to mention that the verse emphasizes that the fish was prepared by God to act as his agent, just like the angels. This fish was an agent. It was a tool. It was a specific fish that he designed and appropriated to do this one task. And that was to swallow Jonah. And he did it as soon as he hit the water. No water entered into the nostrils of Jonah. He didn't drown. That it was a large fish rather than a tiny one. This is one of the sages brings this out. Although, since it was a miracle, could theoretically just as well have designated a small fish for the purpose. But it's because even when resorting to miracles, God always employs an economy of means that therefore causes miracle to happen close as possible to the natural order, leaving only the balance to heaven. So he, like I said, he could have chose a goldfish. And you know what? It would have been possible. Because before there was Doctor Who and the TARDIS that was bigger on the inside than the outside, the Creator has used that as a miracle. And we're about to see that. The TARDIS on Doctor Who wasn't new. It's not a new idea. Yeah, I'm bringing in the science fiction. You know, everybody knows I'm a Trekkie. But this time we're going to Doctor Who. You know, it's that tiny, whimy, wibbly, wobbly, you know, concept. I know Amwell is eating it up too. Me and her could probably have a good discussion on who's your favorite doctor. Just like who's your favorite captain of Star Trek. All righty. So they could have designated a small fish. Could have been a goldfish. As a matter of fact, because of the word gadol gadol is used, doesn't necessarily denote that it was a large fish. Although it can be translated that. But gadol doesn't just mean large in physicality. It can, but it doesn't have to. It says, it may be noted that the multitudes of the people, and I love this, this is where we're going to get into to some good stuff. It may be noted that the multitudes of the people who crowded into the temple courtyard always had enough space. On the Day of Atonement, all the men of Israel had to come to the temple. We've all seen pictures about the size of what the temple courtyard would have looked like. And we're talking about, you know, at the time of Jonah, it wasn't the second temple. It was the first. It was the Temple Solomon. But regardless, the temple courtyard, the part for where the Jews go to, you know, it wasn't miles and miles big. But yet every man in the nation of Israel was commanded to come on the Day of Atonement and prostrate themselves and confess their sins, and they had to do so without being heard by their neighbors. And they had to speak it. In Hebrew, when you pray audibly. Loud enough for you to hear your own voice. And they had to prostrate themselves. They had to pray loud enough that they heard their own voice, but their neighbor did not hear their voice. And they had to lay on their bellies, hands outstretched. And we're talking about thousands upon men in this small little courtyard. And it says, despite the fact that they had therefore been crowded, thus God provided the space where needed, even in a small enclosure. This happened every year at the Day of Atonement, that the courtyard was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. That was a miracle. And that's what they're saying here, that this could have been a small fish. It didn't matter. It was there to do a job, and it did what the Creator sent it to do, regardless of its physical size. So this even makes the miracle even more. And this was a miracle that was done every year at the Day of Atonement. So the same could have happened to whatever species which followed Jonah. It could have been a whale. It could have been a goldfish. The species doesn't matter. The fact that it happened does. I want to read you something interesting as I was doing my studies from the Ramban. Rabbi Moshe Nachmanides has a discussion on this in Genesis chapter 6. Make sure I didn't. Did I put it right? Yeah, 6:19. In Genesis 6:19, I'm going to get it typed out there. Genesis 6:19. It's talking about when Noah was bringing the animals on the ark. And it says, and from all that lives, I should have highlighted those words. Yeah, right here. V'mikol haya. All that lives. Of all flesh. I did highlight that one. That is mikol basor. Basor. Basor is flesh, body. Your body's called a basar in the Hebrew. From all that lives and all flesh, 2 of each shall you bring into the ark to keep alive with you, and they shall be male and female. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe Nachmanides, or Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, he talks about all flesh. It says, it is well known that there are very many species of animals. Some of them large, such as elephants. And he gives a Hebrew word for another animal that I don't know what the English of that was, but I'm just going to use this I'm just going to throw this in there because I can. Elephants, hippopotamus, giraffes are huge. So it's anything we want to think of, large animals that are out there. And others like them. It is also known that the small crawling creatures that creep on the earth are exceedingly numerous. Likewise, the species of the birds in the sky are many. And the sages say in Halim 63b, there are 120 kinds of what they call the impure, the animals that were not used for the sacrifices. Of the birds in the east, all of them considering to be a single species. So just think of this. There are 120 kinds of single species of birds just in the east. And so he had to bring of the species. He was bringing all. When we think, well, he just brought 7 here and 2 here. No, he had to bring, there's 100 of each species. Each species had to be brought so the species alive today. Like over here in my yard, I have woodpeckers. I have finches, and blackbirds, and doves, and hawks. You know, that's just a few. But each one of those had to be brought in. There was 120 species of birds in the east. And there are similar countless species of the other birds. The ones that could be used on the altar. That would be offered up when an offering was made. You always use certain animals that God permitted to be offered up on the altar. And it says, now, Noah had to bring specimens of all of these into the ark so they could reproduce more of their kind after the flood. Each species had to be represented. How many species of animals are there on the earth? And each one of them had to be able to reproduce after the flood. And it says, and when you add up all the food that it would be taken upon the ark to feed them for 1 year, every animal had to have their designated food. You know, you don't feed a bird what you would feed a giraffe. So all these different foods. Noah was a very brilliant man. And plus, you know, the help with Hashem to know what to bring on there. It says, this ark, the one that was built, could never contain them all. Nor even could 10 arks contain everything that Noah was told to bring upon the ark. However, it was a miracle that in a small space, it contained a large volume. So again, right here, if you want to think about it, the ark was the first TARDIS. It was larger on the inside than it was on the outside. So again, this fish being Gadol, and I want to give you an example of one of its uses. The high priest in Israel, in Hebrew, is called a Kohen HaGadol. HaGadol. It's translated there as high, the high priest, the Gadol. Kohen Gadol. He was a high priest. It's the same word is used here in Jonah as large. So was the priest 8 foot tall and 500 pounds? No. He was an average man. But he had a gadol. He had a large job to do. He had a large job to do, a lot of responsibility. So this fish could have been as big as a whale, or it could have been a goldfish with a real big job. So it says here, Rabbi Bakia, like I've just said, says Gadol, great. It also means great. In this case, does not refer to the fish's size, but the fact that he was great in years. Could have been great in years. Could have had Gadol. We could have looked at Adam. He was, the years he lived was Gadol. He lived 900 years. Great. That Gadol would have been used there. So now we have size, physicality. We have the job you have to do is Gadol. The responsibilities could be great. You could be great in years is all Gadol. So we can see how that word, depending on how it's used, what it means. It could literally have meant large fish. But that doesn't take away that it could have also been a goldfish and still been Gadol. See what we're talking about the Hebrew here? Why talking about that Jonah and the whale takes away from the story? I mean, we've been learning here that the fish was designated at creation. We've been learning here that it doesn't do away with your free will. Now we're talking about that it doesn't necessarily mean that it was a large physical fish. It could have been other thing. So we can see here that there's more to this story. We're talking about one verse, the first verse in chapter 2. What are we getting out of this when we dig, when we study? Instead of reading, a lot of people, I've read my Bible. Yeah, but have you studied it? When you start studying the words of the Creator, it will bring you an appreciation and an awe to the Creator that you've never had before. And it enhances your worship toward Him. It heightens your emotions. It makes your emotions, your spirit gadol. It will rise. It will go great toward toward the Creator. Anything before I go to the next point? Scotty. That can just keeps getting opened a little wider and a little wider. Well, I know.
It truly does. It truly does. When you think about the aspects of the fish, you know, a lot of people do get hung up on the fact that it was a whale. And they search out for that, but there's no basis to that. But when you look at all the aspects you brought out about the word, say that word again, gadol?
Gadol, or well, yeah, I'm saying it more from an Ashkenazi in Hebrew, Gadol.
And I'm saying it
Gadol, Townsend, Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm saying it from the mountains of Townsend, Tennessee.
Oh man, we ought to probably hear what Ronald would say from Australia.
Yeah.
He would say, "It's a Gadol, mate. It's big."
He ain't helping you a bit, is he?
I know it. We love Ronald.
But when you look at that, the type of fish is not the issue. But what the fish was created to do is the issue, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a miracle. It's the miracle in itself. The miracle, when we concentrate on a species, we take away from what the Creator was doing here. And that happens a lot in just reading Scripture and getting your own ideas. You lose some appreciation and some awe of the Creator when you try to bring it down into your own understanding instead of just trying to grasp what is actually being said. Right.
I was talking to some gentlemen here a while back, and one of the gentlemen said, I've read the Bible through 5 or 6 times. And so we would talk for a few minutes, and he said, how is it that you know this? And I said, how is it that you do not?
Right. So, I mean, if we go to Proverbs chapter 2, it says those who search for is the hidden treasure and dig for it is a hidden treasure.
Yeah.
Seek like it is silver. And the sages says when it says seek that it's like silver, means it's like you go to your job and you work hard for that paycheck. And that's what that means when it says seek for silver. It's the same way as you go to your job and you work for the end result is that paycheck at the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's the same way we need to look at the words of the Creator. Okay. I know we're running here at 9 o'clock. We're just about done with this part. It says, to swallow Jonah. As soon as Jonah was thrown from the ship, thereby Jonah was saved from drowning. The phrase tells us the specific purpose for which God had designated the fish. The Creator designated it to swallow Jonah. Therefore, the infinitive to swallow is used to emphasize that swallowing Jonah was the fish's sole reason for having been created. And that the verse should not be interpreted to mean that God now prepared a fish which swallowed Jonah. No, when it says that the fish swallowed him, that it was doing the purpose, the reason why it was created. And he brings up some other situations. I won't get into that. It's really doesn't have anything to. Doesn't mean what we're talking about tonight. But that fish, when it says to swallow Jonah, it was fulfilling its mission, just like we were talking about the angels. When God told an angel to go down and go do this, do that. That's why they were doing it. They were designated to do that. Like the rainbow, when he created the rainbow, it's for a reason, which we've discussed in the past. And he goes on and says, and the Jonah remained in the fish's belly. Therefore, the verse does not specifically mention that the fish swallowed Jonah, since the beginning of the verse tells us that it was swallowing Jonah. At the very moment the fish's sole reason was having been created, when he swallowed him, it was his very reason. When the moment he swallowed, he was fulfilling his designated purpose for existing. Then it says 3 days and 3 nights. It says one usually cannot survive in a fish's belly even 1 hour. That he was able to survive for 3 days and 3 nights, nonetheless, is also a miracle. It is furthermore additionally a miracle that he retained the presence of mind to pray. That's another miracle, which I'm not going to get into that tonight. I want to get into next week because it talks about the prayer next in verse 2. And what was interesting is that in the Midrash, Bereshis Rabbah 91:9, is because these Torah scholars and Torah sages have studied the Torah, for 3,400 years. God does not allow his righteous to remain in dire straits for more than 3 days. Throughout Israel, Jewish history, when the righteous are put into a dire situation, it never lasted more than 3 days. That's I guess like a promise that he has made, something that he has done with the righteous, that he doesn't punish them more than that, or put them in a situation without bringing a salvation. And in Hebrew, the salvation doesn't mean the same thing in the Western world sees it. In the Hebrew, salvation for the Hebrews is a physical salvation from a physical situation. That's all it is. It has nothing to do spiritual. It's a physical salvation. Never does cross over into the spiritual. Because we are created here and now for this purpose, and this is what we right now. This is the only time we have to be able to accept the words of God and obey the words of God, and that's what's important. That's another lesson in itself. I won't get all into that, but anyhow, Scotty, anything we can discuss before we close out for the tonight? I know I've opened up a can of worms, but next week's going to be good because we're going to get into discussing prayer a little bit.
There was one question, and it's been asked a few times on the radio, and actually Thomas asked the question similar to this, and I'm flipping back to see if I can find it. Give me just a minute. I'm about there. I feel like I'm about there. But it was based on, don't we have an animal side? It was talking about free will. Does our animal side have a free will? This is a good question.
Does our animal side have a free will? Let me go from this direction here, because this is going to be new for some. In the way that I'm going to be saying this, is going to be new for some. And again, this is another subject of itself. We can do a whole class on it. So I'm just going to touch it just a little bit because it's one of those more what's called esoteric teachings of the Torah. More, it's a deeper understanding. And it takes also knowing some of the Hebrew. We need to understand that when we read the word in English that man has a soul, to understand what that actually says, you need to know what the Hebrew word there, because there's different words that is translated soul or spirit. So I'm just going to give you just a real brief, just basic lesson on this, because it goes deeper than what I'm going to tell you, but this is the basics to begin with understanding. The soul comprises of I hate the English, because if I say it a certain way, you're going to picture it a certain way, and I know it here because the Hebrew, but the soul is made up of 3 parts. I'm just going to put it that way, because in Hebrew you have the nephesh, you have neshama, and you have the ruach. Ruach is generally translated as spirit, but it also can be your soul. Okay, nephesh. This gets into where Thomas is talking about the animal, what we call the animal soul. The nephesh is the part of the soul that's in the blood that causes body to the life, to life to the body. Okay, and one, I'm just going to describe the way it was explained to me in at one time, and there's a lot of different explanations to help, and I'm just going to use this one. The nephesh is like connected with your hands and your feet. It's the part of the soul that causes your body to move, to grasp, to move, to do things, to take your feet to take you places. It's the flesh. It's the flesh. What in some religions they use the word flesh. It's the animal soul, your animal part, and it's the part you're born with. The godly soul actually comes a little later. It doesn't come right at birth. And the Torah scholars tells when it all. I'm not going to get into that. But there comes a point in a time in the maturity of the body that the godly soul comes in. The godly soul is generally, when you read in the scriptures, that the soul of man is the candle of God, that he searches the inwards of man. It's from King David. The word there, that the soul of man is the candle of God. The word soul there is neshama. That's part of your godly soul. It's located here in your head. It's at the highest part of your head. It's the highest part of your body is your neshama. And then you have and it has to deal with your thoughts. Again, that's where, now we're talking about, when you get deep, we were talking about free will. This is where free will comes from. It comes from your neshama, from your brain, from your thoughts. And then you have the ruach, the breath that's in man. That's as one rabbi explained to me, that's like connected to your mouth, your speech. So you have your hands, what you do, your mouth, what you speak, and your brain, what you think. These are all aspects of your soul. The animal and the godly part. And it's like one rabbi explained to me that, like, when it says to lift your hands and to praise the eternal, like King David talks about in the Psalms. When you raise your hands, you're taking that which is flesh, you're raising it up to the level of the neshama, to the godly part of your soul. So you're elevating a great part of understanding the Jewish understanding of the scriptures is always elevating the mundane to the divine, making it a divine purpose. When you go and you give charity, you're taking that which is mundane, money, which can be used for evil or it can be used for divine purposes. But you take your hands, your animal soul, you're using your neshama, your thoughts, and you're taking that money and you're giving it to the poor. You're doing what the Creator wants you to do to help take care of those who are needy. You have just now taken that which is flesh and you've elevated it to the divine. And I know I just opened up another can of worms. So anyhow, yes, we do have an animal soul. We have a godly soul. We have the two. That's in the Hebrew, we have what's called the Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Tov. We have the good inclination and the bad inclination. And I'm just going to, this is free. I'm not going to charge for this one. When it says in there that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. The word heart in Hebrew is lev, lamed bet. In that passage in Deuteronomy 6, and you shall love, it's lamed bet. And so the ancient Torah scholar says bet or bait. I'm going to say bait. Bait is Sephardi, or base is Ashkenazi. I'm going to say bait. Lamed base, Hebrew word for heart. Here it says base. Do you know what a house is called in Hebrew? Bait. Bait is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So the ancient sages tells us that God is telling us that you shall ahava, love the Creator with all your heart. Lev bait. You love Him with two houses. What's the two houses? The good side and the bad side of who you are as a person. You love God with both houses of your heart. The Yetzer Tov, the Yetzer Hara. the good inclination and the bad inclination. So how do we love God with our evil side? So how do we do that? Let's say you have a gambling problem. To help overcome gambling, which can be evil, every time you get the urge to gamble, you give the money to charity instead of to the poker table. Now you just love God with your evil side. Now you just took the mundane and you moved it to the divine. Let's say you have a problem with anger. You don't like people. You hate people. And you go in the grocery store and you open up the door and you hold it for that person to come through. Now you've elevated your anger to charity.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, Scotty.
Wow. That's all I got to say is wow.
I want to tell you, the Hebrew, the Western world has lost out on the depth and the meaning of what it means to be a righteous person. See, all of this I just shared with you is just, it's right. It's righteousness. It's nothing. It's not supersonic spirituality and religion. This is what Noah was when he was righteous. This is what Abraham was when he was righteous. It's simple everyday living. Taking the mundane and that which is bad and elevating it to the good is godly. And that's what the Creator wants from us. He's not looking for us to be super religious and super spiritual. He wants us to hold doors, give charity, help a lady load her groceries, help a flat tire, change a flat tire. Just the common everyday things that we come across in our everyday lives. When you take that and you do what is right in the eyes of God, you have just elevated the mundane to the divine. You've moved evil over into righteousness. And now you are the human being that God wanted you to be from the get-go.
Wow.
So, there. That's free. I won't be on the bill.
That didn't cost you a dime. So, Terry, thank you so much for the...
Sorry I went over, but...
No, that's good.
I can't do this when I go to work. I have to leave and go to work. I'm sitting here and I'm studying this and I got it. So I look forward to Wednesday nights when I get to spill it out.
Yeah. It's awesome, Terry. I want to thank everybody who stayed in and stuck around for this time of teaching. Those of you on Power Faith Radio, thank you so much. Those of you, please, on Power Faith Radio, we added an extra email address. You now have 2 email addresses there, so you can email us. We thank all those that do email us. We thank you so much. Also, those of you on Torah for the Nations YouTube channel, we thank you so much for all your participation, including those of you on Torah for the Nations B'nai Noach Connection with Israel Facebook page. We thank you so much, and please share those videos with all your social media platforms. And before we come to any kind of complete close, I want you to please remember the names we mentioned during our tzedakah time, during our time of charity, and maybe go back and listen to the video. And I know I don't do the names justice, but see if you can get those down. And maybe the rest of this week, you'll see a charity box somewhere and you will bring up one of those blessed memory names and say, I'm going to give this in blessed memory of that person that was mentioned. And we would thank you so much for that. All right, Terry, we coming to a complete close.
Yeah, we're coming to a close, and I just want to bring this out again for any of those that are new listening to when Scotty's talking about a blessed memory, when we're doing tzedakah in the name of a blessed memory, someone who's passed away. It could be any time in recent. It could be your mother, father, your grandmother that you knew, and you want to. When we give tzedakah in the name of someone of blessed memory, you're elevating their soul. What you're doing is once you enter into that realm. See, it takes hands and feet to do mitzvot, to do deeds that God wants us to do. You can either do evil or good deeds with them. So when you give tzedakah, when you give charity in the name of someone who has passed, See, they can't do anything. Once you leave this world, you cannot observe or obey any commandments, none whatsoever. It takes the body to do that. Everything that the Creator gives us is for the earth, not for the other realm. Okay? When you do something and give charity in blessed memory, whether it's money or whether you help someone out, maybe someone is in dire need, and you say, I want to help this person move. I don't want to do it in the name of my father. And you listed that name because my father was, a guy that helped people out. You lift his name up because you're doing something good for someone. You're allowing them to participate in that good deed when they cannot do it. And therefore, you're lifting their soul up. And because they are participating in a deed that's on this side because of their name, the Creator knows this. The Creator lets them know know what He needs to let them know. But when you do that, you elevate their soul a little bit higher than what they could do themselves. And there's great reward for that soul and great reward for yourself because now you helped a soul that couldn't do a deed do a deed.
So I got something I want you to talk about, Terry. I know we've run over, but I had a question that came this week. Someone wanted to give tzedakah for an employer that passed away. But before they passed away, they blessed all the employees with a bonus. And they passed away. Now, this person, the employee, never met this man. And they sent tzedakah for this person. They said, can we give tzedakah for somebody we don't even know? In blessed memory. We can do that, right?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
That's probably the.
I'm gonna throw something out here that seems like it totally has nothing to do with it. Zechariah 8:23. 10 men of the nations grabs the garment of a Jew, a Yehuda, and says, we're going to go with you because we've heard that God is with you. Did they know? Did they know every Jew that's in the nation of Israel? No, but they heard. They heard that God was with them, and they wanted to partake in that reward. They didn't know them, so you may not have known your employer, but the Creator does. And you're telling, when you gave tzedakah and on their behalf, you're telling them, I have heard that my employer, I've heard of my employer, and therefore I want to do this. Doesn't matter whether you know him personally, face to face. Because every one of those that grabs the garment of a Yehud, a Jew, as it says in Zechariah 8:23, they're doing it because of what they heard that was going on in the people. When Yitro came to Israel, to Moses, and he says, I've heard what the God of Israel did for them in Egypt, therefore there are no more gods. He didn't know any of the Israelites except Moses, his son-in-law. But yet he was able to confess, the God of Israel over what he had heard from about people he did not know. I hope those are two okay examples, Scotty.
Great. As we come to a close tonight, I want to give one more blessed memory. I started to do this when Amuela brought, was it a cousin, Amuela, the one you said that was so tall? Will you tell us his name? Their name, her name? What's it?
Murray.
Murray? We're going to give tzedakah in blessed memory of Murray right now. So, listen, we appreciate everybody that spent time with us tonight. It's just like sitting around the table. You have this time of study, and then you have this time of just feeling the love of the Creator. Please come back on Sunday night. Pesach Sherbo will be here Sunday night at 10 p.m., and that's New York time. And then we'll be right back here next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. with Terry. Now we're going to be doing verse
2.
verse 2.
2 of Jonah 2.
2 of
You know, it's a shame it what didn't was it? It's a shame it didn't happen yesterday because it would have been 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that may be a good thing.
Maybe if I thought about it in advance, I would have hurried through some of the other stuff. But no, I don't want to hurry through it. As you can tell, I take long enough.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. All right, everybody. Listen, give tzedakah this week. Give charity this week. Hold the door for somebody. Just do righteous deeds. Do righteousness. And we'll see everybody next week right here. See y'all.
Bye-bye.